Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Nick Stevens. Our co-host Bob Phelan is out this week, but Nick and I are joining you as part of the kickoff of our draft week coverage to give you our mock draft for the Orioles in 2026. The Orioles go into this weekend's draft with the seventh pick overall in the first round, so we're going to project that and a whole lot more on tonight's episode, which is brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor. IQ Bar protein bars, IQ Mix hydration mixes, and IQ Joe mushroom coffees are delicious, low sugar, brain and body fuel you need to win your day. The Ultimate Sampler Pack is a great way to try all IQ Bar products and flavors. You get 9 IQ bars, 8 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. All IQ Bar products are clean label certified, entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial ingredients. All IQ Bar products are packed with clean, delicious ingredients to keep you physically and mentally fit, like magnesium, lion's mane, and more. With over 20,000 five-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are fueling their busy lifestyles with IQ bars, brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. Their ultimate sampler pack includes all three. IQ bars become part of my daily routines, whether it's starting my morning with IQ Joe, grabbing an IQ bar, or IQ mix to refuel after a hard workout. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products. Text 64,000 to MLB, including free shipping, or including the Ultimate Sampler Pack plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text MLB to 64,000. Text MLB to 64,000. That's MLB to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. And of course, you're watching here on YouTube. We have the details up on the lower third. But Nick, I want to start off with you here, just to kind of get us into what we're going to be talking about tonight, which is the draft simulator, which is available at Overslot. You've used this a couple of times leading up to the draft to do some work over a Substack. You also had a solo podcast a few weeks ago. So just kind of give our listeners a taste of what to expect on this episode.
Yeah, we'll pull it up here if you're watching live on YouTube. We'll pull it up for you guys to see it in a moment. But fun tool that Joe's got up here. I think Prospects Live usually had one that you could go like 5 rounds that we would use to create some mock drafts leading up to the drafts the last couple of years. But Joe's is awesome. You can go up to 10 rounds. I don't think we're gonna go 10 rounds tonight. I think we're gonna go 5. Uh, but it's fun. I think he just updated some new draft logic at the top of the draft, so I know he's very high on Drew Burress. Myself and Bob were on his podcast a couple of weeks ago, and we had a long conversation about Drew Burress and where the Orioles could go, and kind of listening to him talk about Burress and how he feels like the Orioles were kind of like the absolute floor for Burress. You see that in his draft logic running a lot of these simulations. You see Drew Burress go pretty high, a name commonly connected to the Orioles. So we'll see if he falls to us here. But he's also got signing bonuses included in this thing to add a little fun little mix to your draft process. You know, the Orioles are going to have $13.1 million bonus pool, so we're going to have to keep that in mind as we draft as well. So, yeah, just a fun little game, fun tool to kind of talk through some prospects. And I think here in the first round, at least, will probably be our biggest conversation, right? I think we're going to have potentially a number of different routes the Orioles can go in the first round, and we'll see how this sim plays out. Hopefully, it can lead to some fun conversations. But does Jackson Flora fall? Do we go high school prep shortstop? You pull up a college outfielder. Do you take one of the college shortstops that's going to be available? There are going to be many avenues, I think, for the Orioles here on in real life on Saturday, and I think maybe this sim is going to lead us down some of those paths that we can talk through a little bit here.
Yeah, and it is a bit of a different draft for the Orioles because, at least compared to recent years, it's a long gap between their first and second pick. Right now, they have their first pick at number 7, with the second pick coming all the way at 46, and then their bonus pool right now just a little over 13 million, just the 13th highest in MLB. And last year they had one of the highest in the draft, but so it's a little bit of an adjustment for us this year, but I think you just gave us a good tease there, Nick, of what to expect. And you and I did start the simulator before we started this episode. So why don't we go ahead and jump off from there?
right, let me pull this up. There we go. All right, so hopefully, you guys, if you're watching live or after the fact, and you can see this, but for the audio listeners, you can see the fun little board here. Slot value for this pick is going to be $7.3 million for number 7 overall. But the draft opened up with the White Sox going high school shortstop Grady Emerson, Tampa Bay Rays going shortstop Rock Chalowski out of UCLA, Twins going Georgia Tech catcher Vaughn Lackey. The Giants, I know they really want Emerson or Chalowski to fall. To them, I have a hard time seeing that happening, but they make it back-to-back Georgia Tech picks as Drew Burress goes to the Giants at pick 4. 5, the Pirates go high school outfielder Eric Booth Jr., another name commonly mocked and connected to the Orioles. And the Kansas City Royals here going a little off script, which I have seen more and more conversation about the Royals potentially getting weird, being the wild card here at the top of the first round. Picking right before the Orioles is, of course, going to make this fun, potentially lead to a pretty big faller here for the Orioles. I think I've seen one specifically name mentioned, UCLA left-handed pitcher Mason Edwards. The Royals, the idea being the Royals pull up a name from later in the first round, cut a huge underslot deal, and then spread that wealth around many high school picks later in the draft. Well, in this sim we got here, they go with LSU outfielder Derek Carriel as their kind of underslot pick there, only 6.5 million in this sim here. So they do go wild card, like they could in real life. So it's kind of tiny. We can't like really adjust the screen here. That's the one thing to Joe. A little reworking maybe of the best available board down here in the corner. But here's where we go. Pick number 7. We have the fall of UC Santa Barbara right-handed pitcher Jackson Flora. You've got high school shortstop Jacob Lombard, of course, his brother, Yankees prospect, dad, former pro baseball player as well. He is available. You've got Texas A&M shortstop Chris Hakopian, former Maryland Terp. You've got Kentucky shortstop Tyler Bell as well. Some college outfielders you could maybe potentially pull up as well, but we've got all the lanes available. And where do you want to start the conversation? Where should we go with this pick?
This is a really fun place to start because, as you just said, we have all the lanes open here. And if the Orioles were picking sooner, my instinct would be to go ahead and go with Tyler Bell in this spot. You laid out a very good case for him recently on an episode where he is hurt right now, or he had an injury this year, but the tools are there. He's a younger guy. There's an opportunity to get him in the system and see what he can do. And you could cut a deal here and save money for later on. The problem, though, is that the Orioles don't pick for a while. So I'm kind of inclined to go with Jackson Flora, knowing it is going to cost you the full slot. But maybe this isn't the year to cut a deal with your first pick.
Yeah, I think how this is laid out right here, the Tyler Bell thing, which there are now multiple mock drafts that have Tyler Bell going to Tampa Bay at number 2 overall, which would be fun. Of course, the Rays drafted Tyler Bell out of high school in the second round a couple years ago. He doesn't sign, he bets on himself, goes to Kentucky, he wins that bet. So I think I'd be out on Tyler Bell. We can eliminate some picks here first, maybe. I'm out on the Tyler Bell here in this situation. I'd be out on Chris Hakopian. Loud exit velos, bat to ball skills are insane. He's a hitter. That's just what he is. He is a hitter, a very good one. But dealt with back issues pretty much all year last year. Didn't solidify the everyday shortstop role at Texas A&M, transferring from Maryland. And then so you got the questions about the defense. I think in this situation I'd probably be out on Hakopian. For me, it's between Flora, obviously the fall, and Jacob Lombard, though, the high school shortstop. But the question, and when Bob and I were on Joe's podcast, and he threw this question out to us, knowing that we just did a 2024 draft recap a couple weeks ago, right? And you see the questionable hit tools that the Orioles are not afraid to go after. The Vance Honeycutt pick has obviously scarred a lot of people for years to come. I think rightfully so. Jacob Lombard and Vance Honeycutt are not the same type of prospect. Jacob Lombard has an immense ceiling. I think I'll read off, since we're using Joe's simulator. I'll read from Joe's writing here. I think that'll be fair enough. But like the way Joe describes Jacob Lombard in his write up about Jacob Lombard's tools, potentially era defining, franchise altering ceiling, even brings back shades of one Manny Machado, that Orioles fans are obviously very familiar with. So this is an immense ceiling here with Lombard, but obviously, if you're following along to draft talk, the big question here with Lombard is the hit tool. It's a high school guy, so the high school numbers kind of are what they are. I think they could be obviously a little noisy, but there are hit tool concerns. I mean, he might have 60, 70 grade fielding, power, arm, run, 60, 70 tools across the board, except the hit tool, there's a lot of 40s and 45s on it. But if he hits, this could be, as Joe says, a franchise altering pick here with Jacob Lombard. And he's got the bloodlines that also come with that. I don't know, MLB Pipeline has an interesting note in their write up as well. They labeled Lombard as a people pleaser, and thinking when he was on the showcase circuit that he just had so many people telling him you should do this, you should do that, you should do this with your swing and your mechanics, and he's just like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And he just started taking everybody's advice, and it just kind of left everything out of whack. And maybe if it's one voice in a pro organization, this is what you're going to do, and let's feed into your strengths. Could the hit tool take off for Jacob Lombard? In this situation, I think this is a tough choice, to be honest.
It's a really tough choice. I'm going to throw this out there. Watching Jaden Loray over the last couple of months, does that give you any bit more confidence of what they could do with Lombard's hit tool?
I think so. I mean, you're not talking about like a Vance Honeycutt hit tool either. Like that was historic, historic. I don't know. Jackson Flora, though, you always talk about the pitching. People want to see the pitching here. And my thought process has always been, I think a fun conversation to have with the pitching is if Flora's not going to be available, then I think pitching is out of the question here in the first round. I'm not pulling up Cameron Flukie. I'm not pulling up Liam Peterson. I'm just, no. And if you don't take a pitcher here in these simulations that I've been running, it's fun to not go pitcher in the first round and then just spam pitchers in these later rounds. There's going to be a lot of them, and there are going to be a lot of really good arms as well. And there are going to be a lot of fun senior arms with fun ceilings that you could save money down the road if we go the high school route here. But I have always been intrigued of kind of the argument that I know a lot of people say. I agree with the way the Orioles draft. I like the Orioles draft classes for the most part, right? They're all not perfect. I like the Orioles pitching development. I like where they're going. I like seeing Trey Gibson, seeing what he's turned into. I like seeing Nestor Hamad, these later round picks, seeing what they've turned into. Caden Hunter this year, see what he's doing in year one. They draft a guy like Joseph Giro, though, and you see what Giro's doing this year. What if they took a guy and you trust the draft process, you trust the Orioles pitching development, and you take a guy with Jackson Flora's tools? What could the Orioles do with him in 2 years? Could he be in the major leagues, pushing for the major leagues by the end of 2027 as that the bullpen arm late in the year? Could he be entering spring training in 2028, a legitimate candidate to make the Orioles rotation? I think so. So that kind of adds fuel to this. Do you go pitcher in this situation with Jackson Flora falling, knowing his electric skill set and just dominance that he had at UC Santa Barbara?
Yeah,
But the
that's what makes this. Oh, go ahead.
I was just say the Lombard hit tool, like with the high school pick, it's again the high school stats I think are kind of noisy. There's a lot of just talk about how it's progressed year over year, and when you're talking about 70 grade power, when you're talking about just elite measurables off the charts in so many different other areas and things you can't measure, like growing up around his older brother who's in the Yankee system, growing up around his dad. This is a guy who, and it's the Holiday conversation as well, where Ethan Holiday comes around. They're like, yeah, if you liked Matt Holiday, if you like Jackson Holiday, you're gonna love Ethan Holiday. He might be even better. That's the conversation with Jacob. It's if you liked his dad, if you liked his brother, well, Jacob might be the best out of all three. The hit tool honestly doesn't really scare me that much here with Lombard.
So I think for me, this is really what it's going to come down to because you don't want to draft based on position in baseball. But I think this is an interesting talking point to have right now. You could draft Flora, as you just mentioned. He could be in the big leagues by the end of next year. Or you could draft Lombard knowing that it is a longer term development project, but that the ceiling is a lot higher. If everything comes together, this could be the Orioles' Bobby Witt Jr., which everybody now says that the Orioles should have taken Bobby Witt Jr. was the first pick in the draft back in 2019. That's a separate discussion for another day. But the bottom line is that it is kind of similar tools. And if the hit tool comes around, the profile is not that much different. So do you go for Flora under the belief that he could be up pitching meaningful games late in 2027 and then be part of your rotation in 2028 and beyond? Or are you looking more for the long term here and figuring that your development in terms of building your ceiling over the next 5 or 6 years, you're much better off with Lombard? Because that's kind of where I sit right now.
Yeah, you think again, you don't draft for need, but then you also think of the Gunnar Henderson conversation, right? Is he going to be around? Could this be the guy that replaces the Gunnar Henderson if he ends up walking in free agency? If the Orioles aren't able to extend him, do you like where the pitching's at right now in this system? Obviously, you can never have too much pitching, but I don't know. Do you have where? What's your lean right now?
I have changed my mind 2 or 3 times in the course of this conversation, to be honest. I went into it thinking Flora, and then I started to lean Lombard. Then I started to think, no, Flora is by far the best pitcher in this class. You're lucky if he falls to number 7. So that's kind of where I'm torn.
I think I'm gonna in this scenario. Honestly, I think I'm gonna lead Lombard. I like the pitching you're gonna be able to get later in the draft. I still like this idea of we've seen the Orioles pitching development down in the minor leagues and how much of a step forward it's taken. Baseball America just put out their farm system rankings today, right? I don't know if you read that piece, but they talked about the strength of the Orioles farm system right now, pitching. Maybe that's more of an indictment on the hitters in the system. That could be a valid argument, but the pitching is pretty strong. We talk about this pretty much every single week. We've been on this train for many years now. Good to see national publications catch on. You've had that injury risk as well to consider. What if Flora throws his arm out and he needs TJ and he's out for 8 to 9 months, even if it's internal brace procedure, and he's out 8 9 months, but that cost him all of 2027, and now he's looking at a 2029 timeline. Um,
Yeah, as we walk through this, I think I am more inclined to go with Lombard just because what you could get for the all around athleticism there, the value could be a lot higher at number 7. And as I said at the outset, I'm not as inclined to cut a deal. You're not going to be cutting a deal with Lombard at all. If anything, it might cost you a little bit more than Flora. But I kind of am leaning towards Lombard now.
all right, let's make George Lombard the pick here. Then let's go with Lombard. And I will say too another thing. Obviously, you can find pitching everywhere in the draft, but also when you go into rounds like 2, 3, 4, the shortstop depth, the up the middle depth, not on the level as like the outfield depth and talent that I think we're going to be able to get in the next couple of rounds as well. So you have an option here to really go a strong, high, uber upside shortstop high school prospect. We could even look at outfielders in like round 2 and then spam pitching and get a lot of fun pitching here with to round out the rest of the sim. But you want to go Jacob Lombard?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. We go Jacob Lombard there. And then the A's go Chris Akopian. And then Jackson Flora goes to the Braves. Tyler Bell to the Rockies. Let it sim out a little bit to the Orioles. This is the part where, yeah, it's a long wait. It's going to be a very long wait on draft night between the Orioles picks, something that it was a lot more fun last year when it was just rapid fire picks.
Yeah, I'll just comment real quick that I saw Archer Horn go to the Padres. That might be his ceiling. Talent wise, he might be able to go higher, but bonus wise, knowing it's going to cost him a lot, maybe the Padres are his ceiling in this year's draft.
Yeah, let's see. We got AJ Gracia going to the Rangers at 16. Cole Carlin to the Guardians. God, that makes me mad. Even though this isn't even real, but Cole Carlin to the Guardians. He's pitching in a World Series for the Guardians in 2 years. Sawyer Strohsnyder to the Red Sox. I feel like that fits. I've kind of soured on Strohsnyder as the draft process has gone along. Liam Peterson to the Braves. That just fits. I don't know why. Ben Blair to the Pirates. I like Ben Blair from Liberty. All right. We're up now at pick 48. Where are we at? We're already 20 minutes into this thing. All right. Joe's rankings. We have $4.5 million for theoretically 9 more picks, but Joe's rankings price us out of Gio Rojas, the left-hander from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. Shout out Kobe Mayo. We can't pick him. We got a bunch of high school picks here. We would completely deplete our bonus pool. So here you go. Right there. Top three names on the rankings. Outfielder. Jake Brown out of LSU. Ty Head out of NC State. Aiden Robbins out of Texas. All sitting there. More high school picks. Jack Natelli, Cincinnati catcher. Jake Schaffner, shortstop from UNC. I like Jake Schaffner, but if we go this, we are repeating Griff O'Farrell from 2024, I think. So we'll bypass that. Do you want to look at pitcher here, or do you want to talk about these three outfielders?
I want to start with the three outfielders because I kind of like the idea of getting an outfielder here. And part of it is that the college outfield profile is something the Orioles have gone for a lot over the years to varying degrees of success. And the other part of it, too, is that the outfield depth in this organization has really thinned out in the last couple of years. Now, I do think there's a possibility it could be building back up a little bit, but this feels like a good opportunity here to one, get some ceiling with the bonus pool that you have left, and two, address a real need in the organization.
Yeah, and I can kind of real quickly here, doing this live on the air. So apologies for like the dead air as I try to pull this up real quick. All right. If you look at Jake Brown, you can read off it's 50 fielding grade, 45 hit, 50 power, 70 run. With Jake Brown, you're looking at strong bat to ball skills. LSU outfielder had a pretty dominant year this year. He hit 309 at LSU with 16 home runs. He hit 8 the year before. He hit 12 in his first 2 years, but he hit 16 home runs this year for the Tigers. 7 doubles, 309 average, OPS over 1,000. 23 walks to 32 strikeouts. So strike out 16.5% of the time, walk just 11% of the time. The ground ball rate, he is slashed. He's more of a line drive fly ball hitter at this point. And looking at some of his pitch data or batted ball data, it is 50th or so percentile whiff rate, 50th percentile chase. So there's a little bit of swing and miss there. Again, the 40, 45 grade hit tool there. 77th percentile, 90 EV, semi decent pull air rates. It's a solid player in his own right. Aiden Robbins had a pretty big College World Series. This is a transfer from Seton Hall. If I can pull his up real quick. So Aiden Robbins, you got 45 hit, 50 power, 55 run, 55 field. Again, Seton Hall transfer, goes to Texas, becomes part of their dominant lineup. A lot of whiff. This year was 14th percentile whiff rate, middle of the pack chase rate. So there's some swing and miss, but 96th percentile barrel percentage, 90th percentile EV. And if you pull up his numbers real quick, Aiden Robbins. And Jake Brown, I think, is more of a corner. Aiden Robbins probably could be the guy that sits in center field for you, but he had 24 home runs this year. He had 6 last year at Seton Hall, 24 home runs, a 333 average, 12 stolen bases, did strike out 23% of the time with a 14% walk rate and a 150 WRC plus. And then Ty Head, I had him in the second round of my mock draft that I did a 10 round version of this. Tyed is a true center field defender out of NC State. I wrote Ty Head, left-handed hitter, 6'3", 200-pound, draft-eligible sophomore. So he hit 294 this year, OPS over 1,000, 14 home runs. He hit just 4 as a freshman, 142 WRC plus, 25 for 28 in stolen base attempts, 23% walk rate to a 9% strikeout rate. So strong hit tool, pretty solid defense in center field. So we would go high upside. If the pick would be a Ty Head pick here, you've got strong defender up the middle, shortstop, center fielder. We're solidifying that. But yeah, it was 92nd percentile in zone whiff, 97th percentile out of zone whiff, 90th percentile EV jumped from the 19th percentile to the 45th percentile. So there's more power in the bat here for Ty Head. Strong defender, strong hit tool, the whole shebang. Any of those guys standing out to you?
I really like Head here because for all the reasons you just ran down, the ability to stick up the middle, all three of these guys have question marks, and maybe Head never taps into that raw power. Maybe the hit tool is fine, but never great. But if he can stick up the middle and he gives you good walk to strikeout numbers as he moves up the ladder, that's the kind of player I feel comfortable taking here. Now, if this were in the middle of the first round, it might be a different conversation where you're looking a little bit more at ceiling. But I feel like picking here in the mid 40s, if you get a guy that down the line is a platoon center fielder, let's say in the worst case scenario, that's not a bad outcome at all. Especially if he can give you plus defense out there. And with Robbins and with Brown, those are both kind of interesting profiles. But between the questions about swing and miss, the hit tool, I think I like Head a little bit better here.
There's, if you're watching on YouTube, that is Ty Head's StatCast card from this year. So you see lots of bright, bright red, 95th percentile, 98th percentile. The big thing, like again, the 90th percentile EV and average exit velos, middle of the pack. But again, he took a big jump from freshman year to sophomore year. The barrel rate only at 34%, but when he does get the ball in the air, he can pull it and get to that power. Yeah, I guess it's more, and he's 55 grade hit tool compared to the other guys have like 40, 45 grade hit tools. You just took the guy, Jacob Lombard, with the questionable hit tool. I think my pick would be Ty Head.
I agree. I think that's an easy pick here, especially because, as I just talked about, you're picking in the mid 40s. You wanted the high ceiling pick of Lombard at seventh overall. I think Head's a good selection here.
Perfect. All right. We're taking him as it sends us into the third round. So we are strong up the middle right now. We got strong hit tool. We'll see if there's more power in the tank for Ty Head, but that 55 hit tool is a strong hitter. And the arm doesn't grade out very well, I don't think. It's like 40, 45. So it could be a below average center field arm, but he's going to get to the ball. We saw Cedric Mullins. we lived with Cedric Mullins out there and enjoyed that. The Sims, we are up to the third round here. I'm going to go back and look at some of the names stood out. Owen Hole, Ryan Lynch, bunch of UNC guys. Evan Dempsey, the two-way guy. Peyton Bonds going to the Cubs. Barry Bonds' nephew. All right. Let's go to ranked. So, third round, we're up to 82nd overall. Again, we have $2.7 million, a slight underslot deal there with Ty Head. We are priced out of all the top ranked high school players here. More high school, more high school. We're going to have to scroll down.
One thing I should point out here as Nick is looking at that is this simulator really does a good job of keeping you honest with the bonus pools. So we can't go completely crazy here.
All right, so some college guys. We've got Auburn infielder Eric Guevara, Florida outfielder Kyle Jones. We just went kind of center fielder though. Jackson Willett, Oklahoma. If that last name does sound familiar. D. Kennedy at Kansas State. Gavin Gallagher at UNC. All the pitchers went ahead of us. Carson Wiggins, Carson Jassa, Max Yeo, Evan Dempsey, Ryan Lynch. They all went. So Ethan Kleinschmidt at Oregon State, he just got a big shout out from Lance Brosdowski. Lance Brosdowski is a big fan of Ethan Kleinschmidt out of Oregon State. Colin Ritchie. Orioles took Colin Ritchie a couple years ago out of the high school ranks. Do you have a position or do you see any names in mind?
I would start with Colin Ritchie because the Orioles did take him out of the high school ranks a few years ago. Is it worth revisiting that here?
I will say, talk about home run power. Pretty extreme. Colin Ritchie from Oklahoma State. 40 hit, 60 power, above average run tool. You look at some of his swing and miss real quick. Yeah. 23rd percentile whiff rate. Chaser, he doesn't chase a lot, but when he does chase, he swings and misses at pretty much everything out of the zone. But barrel rate, exit velos, pull air rate, xwOBA, all of it is like 96 to 100th or 99th percentile. This year, he hit 31 home runs at Oklahoma State, hit 326, did strike out 23% of the time. So I imagine that goes up a little bit in pro ball. We did take two hitters already.
Yeah, and again, just the profile you mentioned a moment ago. Picking 82nd overall, that's not the worst possible outcome, but I will go with this comment here from Vivek on our live stream. Klein spent the next Joseph Giroux. I don't know that I go quite there just yet, but could this be another situation when the Orioles find good value a little bit, not late in the draft, obviously, but not exactly in the first round of the left-hander?
If we go pitcher, which I do like going here, honestly, since like we got slam dunk picks first and second round. I love the Lombard pick. I love the tie head pick. Um, I would be interested in D Kennedy, but again, already going two up the middle guys this early on. I'm fine with going pitcher. I like the lefties. If we want to look at both of those, two of those, Ethan Kleinschmidt being one, or Ethan Norby. Do you want a taller lefty, or do you want the shorter lefty? Ethan Norby, Connor Norby's little brother in many ways. Um, Not the best. I don't think he took a step forward. A lot of people were hoping for at East Carolina this year, but he's a bulldog competitor out there on the mound. But if you go Ethan Kleinschmidt, he's 6'3", 201 pounds. He's a lefty. At Oregon State this year, he made 15 starts, 77 innings, 3.74 ERA. So 2.71 Sierra, a little more predictive there. 30% strikeout rate. Walked just 8% of guys. Some okay ground ball numbers. But if we pull up some of his stuff here. So he's been a starter at Oregon State pretty much from the beginning, from the moment he stepped on campus. Fastball is up to 95, sits in the low 90s, but I think he's a younger arm. How old is he on draft day? 21. He just turned 21 years old. So you're talking about a younger lefty. If he's 90 to 91 now, we saw them add a couple ticks to Joseph Giroux's fastball. He's up to 95 already. By this time next year, could he be sitting 92 to 94 and touching 96, 97? I don't think that's crazy out of question. Um, Natural deception, launch height several inches north of league average have allowed the pitch to play up. And yeah, I'm going to read from Joe Dole's report here real quick, just for simplicity's sakes here. Keep it moving. Sweeping breaking ball, comfortably his best pitch is an upper 70s frisbee that features huge action into right-handed batter's box. Gets above average marks for spin rates and ability to put hitters away with the pitch. Does a great job of repeating his arm slot on the pitch as well, allowing it to look just like his fastball, if only momentarily out of the hand. Fringier changeup with unique shapes, though, and it is specifically deviating off the fastball's vertical plane late. So, again, he's able to tunnel his pitch as well. He's able to repeat his delivery well. He's got good feel for a couple of secondaries already. Joe has him as two above average pitches at the next level in the secondaries with the fastball that could be above average to a plus offering if he gains some strength. I mean, you want to throw the Joseph Giroux comp out there, and we've seen the gains that they've made with Joseph Giroux. We're in the same ballpark, at least I think.
Yeah, at that rate, I'm going Kleinschmidt. Get your first pitcher in this draft. Get a guy that has a profile we know this organization can work with. I think that's the pick here.
Just for fun, because he is a Norby. Connor Norby, 90 innings this year, 90 innings the last 2 years. Strikeout rate was 32% each of the last 2 years. Walk rate just 6%. Some pretty decent ground ball numbers. Listed at 5'10", 195. So smaller lefty there. So do we want to go? Are we going Kleinschmidt here?
As I've said before, I don't care if a pitcher is 5'8" or 6'5". If the profile to me looks like a starter, I'm gonna stick with. Yeah, I'll just go with the profile and not height. But I feel like all around, like Kleinschmidt a little bit better here.
All right. And his signing bonus is 541K. So we can do pretty much whatever we want to with these pick. All right, let's send him to the fourth round. We'll do two more here. This will probably put us at about 45, 15 minutes. So a nice, decent night. Ethan Norby falls to the Giants. Ruger Riojas went right after us, I think.
If
It's
the Giants can
glitching.
get back to being a functional organization, that's a good spot for Norby to land.
I like him. He's not afraid of anybody. I'll tell you that. All right. We are back up to the Orioles' next fourth round pick now. I just want to look. Ruger Riojas going to the A's. Fun senior pick there. D. Kennedy to the Diamondbacks. Ethan Norby to the Giants. A couple of NC State arms. Ryan Marone to the Padres. I think, no, he came back. It wasn't Marone that had surgery. Marone's back and healthy. Tommy Laporte to the Mariners. I'm not a Tommy Laporte fan. All right. We're here, pick number 110 overall. So we've gone Jacob Lombard, prep shortstop. We've gone Ty Head out of NC State, center fielder. And we've got our tall lefty with projection, Ethan Kleinschmidt out of Oregon State. Again, check out Lance Bresdowski. Shout out to Lance, former guest of the show. He had a whole conversation, did a write-up today, I know, on Kleinschmidt, one of his favorite draft arms this year. So we'll go there. All right, best available. Some college guys, pitchers. Owen Kramkowski from Arizona. He's coming off Tommy John surgery, so he might be a little while. Fun arm though. Kansas Dominic Vogel. Texas A&M lefty Shane Sado, senior sign. He really took a step back last year, but could be a kind of a fun project pick. We've got some infielders here. Camden Cozell from Arkansas. Dylan Vigue from Georgia could be a fun pick. We got Cade Lewis, third baseman from Wake Forest. Robbie LeVay out of George Washington. I actually really like Robbie LeVay a lot. Or if you want to go more pitcher, there's a trio of pitchers right here that could be fun. Nathan Taylor from Cincinnati. Gavin Van Kempen out of East Carolina. And Eric Knoxheim out of McNeese State. Is there a position you
Yes.
have in mind? Do you want to look at these three guys?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. Got a couple of interesting arms, or a few interesting arms here. This group, two righties or three righties across the board. Who jumps out at you?
For me, so Gavin Van Kempen I wrote about him as well. Gavin Van Kempen, if you take him, he is going to be a little bit of a project because he had Tommy John surgery. All right, so Gavin Van Kempen, yeah, he had Tommy John surgery at like the second month of the season, so like March or April. He's 6 feet 7 inches from West Virginia. He's throwing 92 to 93. This is from my viewing, and this is the first game of the year at NC State, or it was home, I think, against NC State. But he was throwing 5 pitches. It's a high vertical arm slot. I mean, think like delivery wise, it is very much in the realm of Trey Savage down for the Blue Jays. But it's 6'7" high arm slot. He throws 90. He was 92 to 93, touching 95, and that was in mid-February. But again, he's going to be out for probably half of next year if that is the pick. Eric Knoxheim from McNeese State. I'm going to pull up this senior sign. Baseball America has him ranked as one of the top senior arms in this year's class. All right, Knoxheim is 6'4", 235 pounds, jack of all trades for McNeese State. I'm reading from Baseball America's report here. It's a mid-90s fastball that averaged more than 21 inches of induced vertical break, plays up because of outstanding release traits, including elite extension and a flat vertical approach angle. He also has a mid-80s slider with two-plane break and a changeup with some fade and tumble. But while the fastball is a plus pitch, that's his foundation. That's the bread and butter. The secondaries not as kind of mature offerings, I think there. Again, senior sign option. If you're looking to maybe, if we were to extend this to 10 rounds, I think that could be a fun pick for a guy to save a little bit more money. And we land the Jaden Loray of this year's draft class. You go to the high school pick in a later round. But again, it's how much do you believe in his secondaries? They're kind of meh, I think, right now. Nathan Taylor is a lot of fun. I've watched him a lot at Cincinnati. If I can pull up his stuff here. Nathan Taylor. All right, Nathan Taylor his foundation is the fastball slider combo. So he can get up to 96, 97. He's going to sit kind of 93, 94. It's plus extension as well. He repeats his delivery very well. I think he had a little stretch there during the year where he gave up a decent amount of home runs, but considering the ballparks he played in, college ball flying this year, especially it's not just in pro ball, it's college baseball as well. The home run balls were flying. But while you got Knoxheim there who has the plus fastball and lagging secondaries, Nathan Taylor has a pretty solid fastball with a potential plus slider. And the changeup is kind of the typical, it's a work in progress type thing, but it's come a long way over the years as he's developed. So his secondaries are much more advanced than some of those other guys there. And looking at his numbers this year, he's been a 3-year starter at Cincinnati. This was his best year. Got up to 90 innings, a 3.60 ERA, a 2.4 Sierra, struck out 30% of guys, walked just 7. So all these guys do a good job of not walking batters, striking out a ton of batters. Um, it's kind of like, what do you prefer here? If we're looking at these three pitchers for round 4 pick, do you like the plus fastball and secondaries that could be maybe the Orioles could get a little bit more out of them, or do you like Nathan Taylor, at least that fastball slider kind of fallback option? If it doesn't work as a starter, he's a guy that you look at, he could fall back on the fastball slider and you move him to a relief role potentially.
Yeah, and that brings me to the point I was about to make here, which is that Natsum kind of feels like the sort of Zach Fruit type pick, where
Yeah.
there's a good baseline there, and if you can build out the rest of the repertoire, you've got something to work with. So that does feel like a very prototypical Orioles pick. With Taylor, I feel like if they can take the inverse approach of we like the secondaries, but we need to build out the fastball a little bit more, that's a higher upside guy. But I think with all three, you're looking at potential reliever risk. So I guess what I would question here in this spot is how comfortable are you taking a pitcher in the fourth round that you know has, let's say from the outset, a 50-50 chance, if not a little bit better, of ending up in the bullpen? If it's a high impact reliever down the line, I don't have a problem with that at all. But we know how difficult it can be to develop relievers.
Yeah, and I'll say Taylor's been a ground ball artist as well throughout his career. So I've actually got him up to 97 already. It's 6.5 or more feet of extension. The fastball again, it's the fastball just it didn't get a ton of whiff early on, but the slider last year, I don't have this year's number here, but last year his slider had a 44% whiff rate, and coming into 2026 was considered one of these top sliders in the entire class. And he does have the changeup, but he also has shown a curveball and a cutter. So he's shown the full gamut of pitches. So it's a guy who you can throw him. I think that's something the Orioles look for in a lot of their pitchers, being able to have at least feel for some secondaries, being able to manipulate the ball a little bit. So if they can, get him under the microscopes there, and if they need to do the Zach, you mentioned Zach Fruit earlier, so put your fastball or put your curveball under the cameras, and let's see if we can make some quick tweaks with the pitch with your grip. Can he take to it pretty easily? Nathan Taylor kind of seems like a guy who could potentially do that.
Yeah, I think that Taylor for me is where I'm leaning with this pick.
Yeah, let's do it. Nathan Taylor from Cincinnati. Come on down.
So right now we're at shortstop, center fielder, and two pitchers through our first four picks, and we're going to wrap up here in the fifth round.
Just going along. Gavin Van Kempen almost gets back to us. He goes to the Brewers. So Nakshim goes to the Dodgers. So we've got Gavin Van Kempen going to become a Cy Young candidate with the Brewers and their wizardly whatever they do over there in Milwaukee. And Nakshim, he might blow his arm out a couple of times, but he's going to be a Dodgers pitching prospect and become some sort of contributor for them, or become a major trade piece because they just trade all their prospects. Let's go to the ranked board here. We're just rambling. All right, last pick we'll do tonight here and call it a night. We can go in pretty much any direction we want to, I feel like. So the high school picks would wipe us out if we were to go the full 10 rounds, pretty much. And honestly, for the sake of, I don't know anything about these high school guys at this point. I don't know about
Yeah.
you. So we
Yeah,
can
I'm
keep
fine
it.
passing on a high school guy here.
Let's find some fun names to think about here. Alex Hernandez at Georgia Tech, kind of a utility profile. All the good names went ahead of us. Lucas Moore from Louisville, if you want to go another center field prospect. Again, doesn't really have the power, but strong bat to ball skills. He's going to walk a lot. He's going to steal a ton of bases. He's a speedster, bona fide center field prospect. But again, kind of like Tyhead, although Tyhead has more power projection. Lucas Moore, I don't think, has any power projection. That's kind of a high floor, low ceiling type pick. Ethan McIlvain from Arkansas. I don't like Connor Fennell from Vanderbilt. Do you want to go pitcher or you want to look at hitter?
I'm good looking hitters here.
Let's scroll down and have some fun with it.
There's Trey Phelps if we want to go down that path right now.
Trey Phelps. He had a great. Here's a good range we could have some fun with too. Um, Trey Phelps is my guy after he gave it to Liberty University. I don't want to go Connor Fay, Ryan Peach. We're going too far down here at this point. All right, let's look at. I see Vivek's comment Max Yeo there. I think Max Yeo went like the second round. He went really early. I saw his name go past. So we got all right. We can do. We got Trey Phelps, the Georgia third baseman. Took a big step forward. I feel like with the bat this year. We also have Joe Tiroli. If we want to look at the other UVA guy, but if we want to go higher floor college bat, do you want to go upside? Do you want higher floor? Do you want power? Do you want strong hit tool? What are you thinking?
My normal inclination here, you're in the fifth round. We're talking about college position players who go with the higher floor. I remember we had this conversation last year where the Orioles took Colin Yeaman right around this spot. And our reaction at the time was that if the Orioles had taken a player like Griff O'Farrell in this spot in the draft the year before, we would have been fine with that. It was just that they drafted Griff O'Farrell too early. Now, with that said, if you want to go with the upside of a guy like Phelps, that's worthy of a conversation here, but I'm also okay going high floor in the fifth round.
So if we look at Joe Tiroli, then he transferred in from the MAC. He was at Rider, transferred into UVA this year. He was the MAC. That's MAC, two A's, not the other MAC. He was the MAC Player of the Year in 2025. OPS like 1200. He's just fantastic. 18 home runs. He bat to ball skills are there. He does have the power. You're talking about that high floor, kind of high baseball IQ type guy. It is very like the defense is not on par with Griff O'Farrell, but I think this is Joe Tiroli to me is kind of what I think a lot of people were hoping Griff O'Farrell was going to be when the Orioles drafted him. Um, there's power, I think, projection in this game. So Joe Doyle kind of comps him physically, at least to Dan Ugla in his scouting report, which I think is a fun little note there. But this year at UVA, he's 6 foot, 200 pound right-handed hitter. Transferring again from the MAC to the ACC, he's still at 16 home runs, 13 doubles, hit 319, 984 OPS, 14% strikeout rate, walked 11% of the time. Ground balls a little bit of an issue, but not terrible. Pull up his StatCast card here. There you go. So middle of the pack with Chase, okay, but you see the power there. So 90th percentile EV. This kind of feels almost this is like a Colin Yeaman esque pick. Yeaman, Tiroli maybe not as good of a hit tool coming out of the draft, but I mean we've kind of seen Colin Yeaman struggle with the hit tool a little bit this year in pro ball, but the power potential, 82nd percentile barrel rate, good pull air rate, uh, interesting, good, interesting selection there. If I can share the screen back again.
Yeah, it does feel like Tiroli, he's the kind of guy that a year from now we could be talking about him putting up really good numbers at Frederick, perhaps among the organization's leaders in home runs, but there's a question about how the hit tool is going to develop. Again, earlier in the draft, I would have a lot of concerns about that, but I feel like for a fifth round pick, especially when we're looking at this draft class so far, we've already allocated a lot of our bonus pool to the first pick in Lombard. We're not going to have a ton of room left as we move down to the 10th round, which we're not going to get into on tonight's show. But if we're thinking about it through those lens, I think that's actually a good pick here.
And just to throw out Trey Phelps' name too, he hit 348 this year, OPS over 1,000, 19 home runs. He is, to some, I will say he's going to be an acquired taste. I'm all about the Trey Phelps swag. He does, he doesn't like to button up the jersey. He likes the chains. He likes the neon colors on the cleats and the batting gloves and everything else. He likes to stand out. He is a a firecracker in every sense of the word. He is one of the most fun players to watch. He did cut his strikeout rate this year from 19% down to below 15%. So he did have a strong year, but you're looking at more of a third base kind of guy, maybe a corner outfield type. Tiroli, you're looking at a guy who's more versatile. So if you're looking at a potential, again, like you mentioned in this range of the draft, someone who could potentially fill kind of like a utility role, Tiroli could be that guy.
Yeah, I love Phelps' style too. I know that, as you said, it's going to be an acquired taste. I do like it here, and it's really not weighing on my mind so much for this pick. It's really just more so, number one, how much money do you have left later on? Now, according to this simulator, there's only a difference of about 3,000 in the bonuses, so we're not looking at a significant difference there. But then with Tiroli, if there's versatility and there's power, that goes a long way to raising the floor of a first round pick.
Yeah. And you're talking if it's down between these two here, like Trey Phelps, like there are bigger questions about the defense. Like I think that's the thing. And when you're looking at kind of across the board, two things I know like Orioles fans are rightfully kind of complaining about a lot. When you look not just the major league level, but in the farm system as well, it's defense, it's hit tool, right? And Trolley kind of brings all of that. We know the Orioles like their UVA products. I wouldn't hate the pick if you want to go with Tiroli here.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I lean right now. So let's make that the pick.
All right, let's do Tiroli. All right, so there's our five. Jacob Lombard, prep shortstop at first round. Second round, NC State outfielder Ty Head. Strong hit tool, strong defense, potential power, more juice potentially in that bat there. Good second round pick. We went super strong up the middle to begin. And then we went back to back pitchers. Ethan Kleinschmidt, the tall lefty with the intriguing arsenal and a lot of room, a lot of ceiling to dream on there with Ethan Kleinschmidt. Nathan Taylor, higher floor pick, fastball slider combination. Another fun arm to get a little bit more juice out of. And then we went the utility profile there with Joe Tiroli at a UVA. Decent hit tool and some real power, some real thump in the bat as well. Play infield, outfield. I like we ran the gamut. The first round, we got to have the conversation about Jackson Flora versus Lombard or cut a deal. And then we kind of built out a full profile here with these three picks.
That's a good point there. And we're going to head into our last question of the night. Last call brought to you by Checker Spot Brewing, located at 1421 Ridgely Street. Checker Spot is not far from Camden Yards, making it the perfect place for a pre or post game drink. However, if the Orioles happen to be out of town or you don't have tickets to that night's game, Checker Spot is also a good place to go and watch the game. They have plenty of TVs to go along with good food and drink. Plus, they are open 7 days a week. Be sure to check them out at Checker Spot Brewing, 1421 Ridgely Street in South Baltimore. And now, for our last call question tonight, I want to get into a little bit of a preview of what is hopefully not a topic of discussion on Saturday, which is how the board is going to fall leading up to the Orioles pick at seventh overall. On one hand, with the Orioles picking much earlier in the draft than they have in several years, there is less room for error in terms of how teams could go a little bit crazy. Some guys that maybe we like going off the board early. You do eliminate the room for error there, but at the same time, Nick and I ran through multiple simulators before we started this episode. And as we've seen in some mock drafts recently, there are some questions about how the first six picks are going to fall leading up to the Orioles. And it seems like there is a potential for chaos leading up to that. So, Nick, I want to throw this question out early. And I know we're going to talk about it more on Saturday, which is going to be day one of the draft. But what's the worst possible way that this board could fall for the Orioles before we get to pick number 7?
Oof. Worst that could happen. I see. I can make a case for so many of the options, but I guess worst case scenario is you kind of see chalk at the top, right? You're going to see Grady Emerson go. You're going to see Rock Chalowski, then Vaughn Lackey. You're going to see Jackson Flora go. You're going to see Jacob Lombard go, and then you're going to see Eric Booth Jr. go, or we'll say Drew Burris go. I guess I don't know. Either way, I say that though, like, oh, you see Eric Booth Jr. go. Oh no, we get left with Drew Burris. Drew Burris goes, oh no, we get left with Eric Booth Jr. or you pick you go Chris Hacopian, or you pull up an outfielder, you pull up an AJ Gracia from UVA. There's some talk about a top 10 team pulling him back up into the top 10 in this year's draft. I like any direction. Picking seven, I honestly think, not to like not answer the question, I think that picking seven and the way this board could potentially fall in many different scenarios, and with the potential of the Royals apparently maybe going rogue here, I think this is in a really, really good spot. I think the trouble though is the bonus pool situation. I think the Orioles are going to have to get creative in that aspect. But as far as like when you're picking in the top 10 like this, which hopefully we're not back in this situation again for a while, but we are, so got to make the best of it right now. I don't really see any path that I'm like, ah, damn, no, we're not going to have a fun night in the first round.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's, my first thought when I wrote this question out was okay, Lombard, Burris, and Flora go in the first six picks. But to your point, you could still have Booth there. You could still have Tyler Bell there and have some fun, make an under slot deal, have money left later on in the draft. So there is less room for error here. So I do think that we've reduced the little bit of heartburn that we've had in the last couple of drafts where you're starting to see guys fall. And as we talked about a few weeks ago, we revisited the 2024 draft class. Every player that we liked better than Vance Honeycutt went in like the 5 or 6 picks leading up to when the Orioles selected Honeycutt. So you leave less room for error here with that. But I do think one of the big challenges of this draft is going to be how you resolve the bonus pool situation, because in recent history, at least, the Orioles aren't used to working with this small of a bonus pool and having this much space between draft picks. So I think that it is going to be something that's really interesting to watch how they deal with on Saturday.
Yeah, I'll just my only other point is that I do think it is going to be interesting to see how this falls, because we know the Orioles want that strength up the middle. I mean, all teams would prefer to like nab that high floor, high ceiling, uber strong defender and a shortstop prospect. Those kind of profiles in this year's class fall off very quickly. So I'm very curious to see how the Orioles end up attacking this, depending on how the board falls. I guess to go back to the question then of how the board could fall with worst case scenario, you see other teams at the top of the draft kind of see that same thing, and they want to make sure they nail down. And you see Grady Emerson go, Chalowski goes, you see Lombard go, and you even see Tyler Bell go, since he's being mocked as high as two a lot. You see all those guys go, and now the Orioles are then internally hell bent on, we're not going Jackson Flora. We need that shortstop, and we're going to go shortstop. And it's between like Chris Hacopian, who probably isn't a shortstop at the next level, and there are a lot of defensive question marks there. And again, he just had a full year of basically back injuries. As much as I love the guy, it is a scary profile at 7 overall. Or the name that gets connected every single mock draft for the last year. Do the Orioles then say, all right, we want the sound defender, and we're going to pull up Justin LeBron from Alabama? Um, I think if that situation played out, that would uh, I would, I don't want to say I would hate it, because it just wouldn't be my favorite pathway for the night, we'll say.
No, it wouldn't be my favorite at all. And I'll throw out one more question since you added that in there. Would you prefer Hagopian or LeBron in that situation?
Hacopian, he
Yeah.
he just hits the crap out of the ball, and he's like, I know it's college, the EVs are out of control, but it is 114, 115 exit velos. Even if he's a second baseman in the future, I think that hit tool is going to allow him to fly through the minors. LeBron has just been multiple years now of being unable to hit SEC pitching. Uh, Even if he's a potential Gold Glove defender at short, I think the bat is going to be a big question mark. But again, yeah, that's kind of worst case scenario if it's down to those two guys. But I don't see that happening. I think the Orioles at 7 are going to be sitting perfectly to land. Someone's going to fall. It's not going to go chalk, and it's not going to be as expected here, within the top 6 picks ahead of them, something crazy is going to happen. Somebody's going to fall, and the Orioles are going to get a pretty nice talent to fall into their laps. I feel pretty confident about that.
Well, and that's a good teaser for Saturday. We will be back on the air then to have live coverage of the drafts. Be sure to check that out. We'll have more details about that on our social media channels, of which there are many, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, X, YouTube, Twitch, and Blue Sky. We're also over at Substack, Orioles on the Verge, .substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure over at patreon.com and sign up to become a member today. It's $3, $5, or $10 levels. You can have access to bonus weekly coverage from Bob, Nick, and myself, as well as monthly updates to our top 50 prospects list. And our July update is only a week old, so you will have access to that, plus our prior month updates, and of course, patron exclusive channels within our Discord community. So be sure to check that out over at patreon.com. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.